Tales from Sales, Episode 3. Sit tight. We're going to be looking at rejection, the sales close, identity, academic psychology, the Dunning-Kruger effect. I applied for a sales position answering an advert in the Press and Journal, Aberdeen Press and Journal. It was a well sought after position, and because you got trained up and the company was a global corporate, so a lot of people applied for this, and they actually then interviewed 60 people in the region North East Scotland, and I got interviewed at Inverness. Eventually they took on 6 of us, and we all trained together in Aberdeen, and they booked us into a hotel there. So when I was being interviewed by a guy called Ray, he said to me, "How would you deal with the rejection you'll get in this job?" Which was selling CCTV systems to small businesses. And I thought, yes, that's a very good question, and requiring a very good answer. The answer to that question could make or break whether you're going to get hired. The guy did hire me, and so I didn't balls that one up. But in sales, you're meeting people rejecting you all the time. In fact, what happened, one of the guys went out to start doing his selling on the first day after training, and he just resigned. It was too much for him. How I answered that question was the reason why I got hired. So there's a thing. The biggest fear with a salesperson is what's known as a close, and that is when you close a sale or finalise it, ask for the business, and the person agrees. But because you fear the rejection, you might start to make excuses as to not ask for the business because you don't want to feel the rejection. You're essentially deferring the sense of rejection by saying, "I'll get you a quote," or "I'll phone you back tomorrow." What you're doing is you're wimping out. You're making an excuse because you don't want to feel that horrible feeling of the person just saying no chance, and you just feel horrible. So in order to help yourself with that, you might pretend it doesn't matter to ask for the business. You should maybe just give the person a quote, and you just leave in friendly terms. And it might also be impertinent to ask for the business. So you make this excuse. What's interesting here is I studied academic psychology and have qualifications in psychology. And does that help you in sales in the real world? Not on your Nelly. I don't think it's of any use at all. But there is an effect called the Dunning-Kruger effect, and it's to do with a study by David Dunning and Justin Kruger. I think they did this in the late 90s, and it was about how people who are not too clever overestimate their ability and their intelligence. But this wasn't news to me, because when I was studying academic psychology, my final project was titled The Perception of Intelligence, and my study was about how people either under or overestimate their own intelligence. It wasn't about actual intelligence. It was about how someone thinks, how intelligent someone believes themselves to be, which is quite different from their measured intelligence. So when I've been commenting here and there on perhaps YouTube, people often say to me, "You're suffering from the Dunning-Kruger effect," and of course I've no idea what they're talking about. They're just saying that as a throwaway cheap shot. But in actual fact, I would then say, well, the Dunning-Kruger study was based on my project. They took the extract from it, abstract, and made it into a project. But I had already had this idea and produced a paper on it before them. And of course, when I say that to the people on YouTube, they just say you're talking a load of balls. So here's an interesting point. It might get you closer to what's actually happening. Sales is about psychology, but not academic psychology. It's about how people react to you as an individual, and that's why it's so brutal a game, because if you win or lose a sale, you've only got yourself to answer to, and that's why it's so raw. Because if you don't get a sale and you feel you were to blame yourself, there's nowhere to turn to. It's a no kidding game. You can't get a half sale, or I made friends with the people, or they're going to buy from me next year. It doesn't count in sales. Very much like sport, a football match or tennis. You don't get a moral victory by saying, "Oh, I played well." It's all about the result. So here's something to ponder. I was visiting business, and I may have had about 1,000 appointments. That's with directors, all different levels, business owners, you name it. And perhaps I made 300 sales. Let's just say that's what happened. And bearing in mind I was offering security systems, alarm systems, security products, and CCTV. And out of the whole scenario, all these different appointments, and wandering around factories, shops, opticians, dental practices, hotels, theme parks, you name it. I had been to visit all these different people, and we were discussing the problems with staff, the problems with the building, the problems with security, and I was doing this routinely for a period of years. And here's a fascinating fact. That is, no one ever, not one single person, no one, zilch, nothing, asked for any identification. Not one person asked me to identify myself. They just assumed that I was who I was saying I was, and I was entitled to wander around talking about the vulnerabilities of their business, their accounts, members of staff who could be embezzling. I was talking away. No one ever Not one single person asked for my identification. So I could have been anyone. And now we're getting closer to the nitty-gritty of what sales is all about. If you can understand why they didn't ask me for my ID, we can understand the psychology. It's because it's all about perception.